You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who have or still cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Now, here's your host of Sabres Semantics, Brandon Caputo.
Welcome into another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by J&O Flooring. If you think you get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack. Contact our Niagara Falls location, been your quality flooring project today. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder back with you, as always, with our bi-weekly show discussing the Buffalo Sabres. And, boy, we have some stuff to discuss, but, again, it's not exactly fun right now, but it is what it is, and we'll get into what's been going on with the team the last couple of games after the All-Star break. We'll talk about Ukko-Pekka Luukonen. He's been playing very well. We'll get to our fan poll as well with what we're going to look for come trade deadline time, because that's basically what we're at this point with this team, and we'll see where it goes from there. But, I mean, everybody listening to the show or watching the show knows, I mean, if you've been keeping up with what we've been doing, it's just been a difficult time to kind of figure out what we're going to talk about with this team, because they don't seem to make any moves or changes as of now, and there's rumblings with trades, but whether that actually turns into anything, who knows? But we'll get that on today's show. So make sure to follow the podcast on X at Sabres Semantics as well. We are available on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and on the video versions of our podcast here on YouTube. So make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell if you're enjoying the video versions of our podcast here on the network. And if you're listening to us today on demand and audio, thank you very much for choosing us on your favorite audio platform. So, Austin, I'm going to pull a Cody Rhodes here. And for all you wrestling fans out there, because in the pre-show, before we started recording, I basically said I was going to leave it up to you as far as what do you want to talk about?
I mean, do you want to highlight the small positive that is happening right now, or do we just, I don't know, do we get into the broader discussion? Because
I don't know if you want to go at it like what you've been going at with your Twitter feed lately, but there's just been a lot of frustration. You even talked about on this show throughout the season that, you're usually very invested into the NHL, not, beside of what other stuff you got going on as well. But it's just been hard to kind of invest yourself in this team because they don't make changes and they expect the fans to continue to come back when they're expecting a different result that's not happening. Well, they haven't made changes other than when guys get injured, they call people up or things like that. But the moves aren't here. And they continue to fall in the standings, and we've seen them score one goal in their last 3 home games, and that's not going to cut it. Coming out of the All-Star break has not been good. I mean, to be fair, they scored 2 goals in the 2 games, and it's just, by the time this comes out tonight, they're playing the LA Kings here at home, and even though the Kings have been struggling, I'm not going into that game very optimistic, saying that that's going to be a slam dunk, because David Rittich has played well in the net for them since Cam Talbot was a hot mess. So again, I don't know what your expectations are moving forward. I know, we try to be optimistic as we can on this show, but with the way the team has performed and what they've showed us so far, it's just hard for us to get there right now.
Yeah, and what I'm about to say, I'm not saying to be funny, or I'm not saying to be oh, ha ha ha, no, but my expectations are nothing. There's no reason to expect anything right now. The season's done. They're not making a late season playoff push. January looked decent, but let's be honest, weak opponents. Not exactly the easiest stretch coming out of the All-Star break. Dallas St. Louis, LA, Florida. But to be fair, all 4 at home. Like, so harder opponents, but you're at home. This team just doesn't know how to play at home. It's been the theme for the last year and a half. Like you said, the Dallas game, honestly, that was one of those games where it's like, all right, you just got to chalk it up to Ottinger played great because Buffalo played really well. The St. Louis game, at the third period was pathetic. You're down a goal. Luukkonen, again, didn't face a whole ton of shots, but he made some quality saves. He did keep you in that game. The second goal, not great by anybody who was on the ice, Luukkonen included. It was just the guy, Kyrou was left wide open in the slot. Luukkonen tried to poke it. He whiffed it. It went right to Kyrou, who had tons of space. Just whatever. It is what it is. I don't know. Can't really hear Granato and Oposo, everyone just say, we're doing the right things, but the bounces just aren't coming our way. Like, we hear that after every game. And like you said, the changes just aren't coming. So what? They clearly don't care. Why, I guess, should anybody else? And I think you'll start seeing that reflected in, sadly, yet again, the attendance for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the Dallas game covering that, and it just seemed like from the fans you heard in the 300 section, they were just very frustrated with, the team not shooting the puck or trying to be too fancy, or, when you only score one goal, it's hard to get the crowd invested, and they're anxious. They want to see goals, and we keep bringing it back to last year with it. The team was fun. They were fun to watch, even though it was kind of run and gun hockey at some points. It was fun hockey to watch. This team is hard to watch this year. Like they're not making the same plays that they did last year as far as just the high compete level, the high motor, and getting fans excited to watch the team, even though they might lose 5-3. Like you said, if they want to have an identity the rest of the year, just go out there and try to win on offense, because clearly whatever they're trying to do right now is not working, and they're not scoring any goals at the rate that they were even a month ago. It's just they go through these spurts where they'll score a couple of goals, or a couple of games where they have 3 or 4 goals. And then you go through stretches like this where you're at home. It's unacceptable when you're at home to score 1 goal in 3 straight home games. Like, that in itself just is crazy to me. And that, like you mentioned with the attendance, that's going to get people to not want to come to games, because who wants to come to a game and watch your team score 1 goal? I'm sorry, but it just doesn't. No. It doesn't sell.
Yeah, you're correct on that. I will, not to you, because you said fans are saying it, I will push back. Really weird that fans are upset about shooting the puck in the Dallas game when Buffalo had 48 shots. But yeah, typically Tuesday games are already kind of a weird, like Tuesday nights are not exactly the night to go to an NHL game. So you're already probably going to struggle to draw on a Tuesday as it is, but when you're not playing well, the attendance is not going to be good. Yeah, they're not scoring this year. It's ironic. We talked about the summer season preview. If this team gets average to above average goaltending, they should be in the playoffs. Well, maybe not for the whole year, but Luukkonen has been well above average for the last 2.5-ish months. And it hasn't really changed anything. And that's not Luukkonen's fault. Luukkonen's playing really well. So there was supposed to be some regression. Yeah. Not this much. And this is where the regression was expected, obviously, like I said, but this is where your GM is supposed to make a move, or your coach is supposed to change something up. I mean, people can talk about the power play looking better, like it's generating chances now, but like, doesn't mean anything if you're not scoring. Like, it's crazy to say, but for the most part, this team has been pretty solid at 5-on-5. Special teams have just been killing them. And there's just been no fight from anyone within the organization to try and address those changes. Like, the power play system doesn't change. The personnel has not changed. There's nothing. No signs of life. And good for Elliot Friedman. Like, it's too late to hear it, but at least it feels like the light bulb has gone off in this organization's head, saying, like, yeah, we have to make some actual serious win now moves. Not even win now moves, because that sounds like rentals, but they need to make some serious moves to make this team better right now. No more prospects, no more first round picks. Like, they need actual talent to help supplement what they do have, because Cousins is playing well again. Tuck is still pretty good. I know people are worried about Thompson, but he's still a good player. Like, he's in a slump. He's had some injury battles this year or whatever. He's still shooting the puck really well. It's just not going in. That's going to happen. I wish it didn't happen. Like, I wish the slump wasn't as big as it is for him now, but whatever, it happens. He's going to be a streaky player probably for the rest of his career. But yeah, there's just cool. Friedman said they want to win. They want to make win now moves. Awesome. It's far too late for that, but I guess at least they know they can't just sit on their hands come the off season, because I don't know, they probably won't have a job if they do. There's probably an argument to be made that they don't deserve their job right now, but I don't think that's going to change, because it would have changed by now if that was the case.
Matthias Samuelsson has been shut down for the rest of the year as well in the decor. So, trading a guy like Eric Johnson, which we'll get into in our poll later, do they make moves where they're making seller moves where they're trading off the UFAs? Like you said, do they make like a hockey deal where they're trading a Yoki Haru or a Casey Middlestat in a deal to try to make the team better now, instead of trying to get first-round picks and prospects, or picks in general, just trying to get people that are going to fit in the lineup right now and help them get better, because it's just a stagnant lineup that feels like they just have so many of the same players. Like you mentioned, having like Jordan Greenway has been a breath of fresh air, even though he's not generating. He just plays a different type of style that they could use, especially in that middle six role. And they don't really have, like, you have like an 18-year-old Zach Benson going in there and being one of your best forecheckers and your best guys, below the net. Like, that's great, but should an 18-year-old be your go-to guy in that sense when you've got elite level players that are all making $8, $9, $10 million on your team? To me, that's a bad look on the core right now, and the way that they're underperforming, more so than it is a good look on Zach Benson right now.
Yeah, no. The core is kind of the issue right now, right? Because they're underperforming. Now, I'm not the doomsday guy who thinks that they're going to underperform for the rest of their contracts. But yeah, right now they're underperforming, and I think they're probably 75% to blame for the season that the Sabres are having. I still think 25%, like the coaching staff and the front office, deserve a decent chunk of the blame, because they haven't shown a willingness to adapt or adjust on the fly. Apparently now they are. Again, we'll see if Friedman's report actually reigns true and the Sabres make a trade that makes them better right now. We'll see. It really isn't going to make a difference for the rest of the year, but I guess at least you can get a guy in, acclimate him for the rest of the year, and then he's kind of ready to go for next season. Like I said, we'll see what happens when we get closer to the deadline. But yeah, it's been an abject failure from pretty much every level. And even Luukkonen, I want to give Adams credit for that, but he lucked into this. Like, I think the plan was for Levi to be the guy. Obviously, they threw a lot at him right away. It didn't work out. It's fine. He's playing pretty solid in Rochester, but Rochester has their own problems. But Luukkonen looks competent, but it's hard to even give Adams credit for that, because I don't he didn't expect for. There's no way he expected for Luukkonen to be the guy and to be playing as well as he's been playing.
And we look at the upcoming games, and like you said, it doesn't get any easier, because they had a pretty easy stretch of January and beginning of February there. I mean, you've got LA, you've got Florida, which Florida will be interesting because Sam Reinhart comes in here leading the NHL in power play goals, and if he pots a few more, that's going to make Sabres fans even more upset with that trade, even though, they got Devin Levi in that deal. But anything to pile on right now, any little thing that you could, is basically where they're at this point. Then they go out to Minnesota. They come back to play Anaheim on a Monday afternoon, and then they go on the road to Columbus and Montreal, and then they're at home to Carolina. So that's probably, the next time we'll record. But, they've got 7 games here, in the next 2 weeks. So they've got a 4-game week and a 3-game week. I mean, that's a possible 14 points, but I mean, I'm not optimistic that they pick up 6 at this point, just because the way that they're playing and the way that they play down to certain teams. Again, they're looking up at a lot of teams. It's not like they're a top team by any means, but it just seems like the teams that are around them or lower than them, which aren't many in the standings, they play down to those teams. So, what team we're going to get, that remains to be seen, because it's such an inconsistent group. We saw what they did out in California, and even though there was some, bad parts of it, they did come away with 2 wins. But then they come home and you figure, okay, off the All-Star break, they're going to be refreshed, they're going to be good, ready to go, and you score 2 goals in 2 games, and they just leave you wanting so much more. And as the thumbnail of this video says, goals at a premium or scoring at a premium, and that's basically what you feel like right now with this club.
Yeah, like I said, like the discussions we'll have later, they're not even. I guess it is the time because the trade deadline is a month away, but that's basically where we're at with these discussions. But when you really think about it, like JJ Peterka, Jeff Skinner, even Tage Thompson still has 15 goals. Like, so I know people are freaking out, but like he's still scoring at like an okay pace, but like nowhere near the pace that they should be. Really, it just feels like if Cousins and Peterka are shut down, the rest of the team kind of is just shut down. And like, again, I don't really want to get into the ins and outs of the lineup because I think breaking down lines at this point is almost nearly pointless because the season's over and people will probably just tune us out if we start getting into that because people will just say, who cares? But like, I know there's injuries, but there's no reason for Kyle Oposo to be on your top 5-on-5 line. There's just not. And there's no argument that will change my mind otherwise. And that's not a slight on Kyle Oposo. That's not his role. It hasn't been his role since like the first 2 years he's been here. Now all of a sudden you're thrusting him into that role. Like, I don't know. Just feels grossly negligent by the GM and the coaching staff to be doing what they're doing with this lineup.
And I mean, they have the third worst goals for in the Eastern Conference. So, I mean, that's not going to help. I mean, Ottawa has actually scored more goals than them, even though they're lower in the standings. 3 games in hand, though. So, technically, if Ottawa, let's say, were to get 6 points, they'd be ahead of Buffalo. Buffalo would be last in the conference, lower than Montreal, which is just crazy and sad at the same time with a team like Montreal that's clearly in a rebuilding state. That this Buffalo team, you thought, coming into the year, they were going to be a playoff team or at least competing right there for one. And right now they're behind Montreal, who is in a full-out rebuild, and it's a bad look on all levels.
Yeah, like objectively, like you just said, one of the worst goals for in the conference. Division-wise, they're third best in goals against. Like it's their offense this year. It was their bread and butter last year. It's gone this year, and there's just been no concerted effort to try and make it better from the outside. Now, again, I don't necessarily mean you're going to be trading for a superstar, but like they could have made an upgrade when Jack Quinn was going to miss the first couple months of the year. They didn't. Now Jack Quinn's out again, and good for Benson. I'm glad he got thrust into that role because I think he's earned it. But then at the same time, now we're slotting in, like I just said, Kyle Post was now on your first line. Like, Granato can only play the lineup he's given, I guess, but he also doesn't have to play Oposo on the first line. So, like, maybe Adam should make a trade to give them an extra piece. But then, like, Granato is willingly playing Oposo on the... Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I've said it before. I'll say it again. But, like, there's no point anymore because it's not going to happen. But not... Unserious team. Serious teams with playoff aspirations don't let this happen. They make a change, whether it's the coach, whether it's make a trade. Right now, the Sabres are showing they're not a serious organization. Like, Greg Berube was fired. He was a Stanley Cup winner. No disrespect to John Granato. He was a very good developmental coach. He still might be a good coach, but like, other than getting an extension before the start of this year, what has Granato done to deserve to still be the coach of this team?
I mean, Berube's out there. Todd McClellan's out there, who was kind of the fall guy in LA for their top players, just not holding themselves accountable. But, I would take both those guys right now if they were available, just for the fact that we've seen those guys have, success in the league. And I love Don Granato as far as a developmental coach, like you said, and getting these guys to this point, and they love him in that room. They talk about it all the time in the post games where they ask, have you quit on this coach? And they kind of look weird at the media members for even asking that. Like, why would you even say that? We've clearly not given up on them. Well, clearly it shows it on the ice that there are spurts that they don't care, or they've tuned it out, or they're just not expected to be held accountable with what message they're being given right now.
You just said it perfectly. They say that they haven't given up on him or tuned him out, but he comes to the podium with the same quotes, the same reasoning, the same excuses. The performance on the ice it contradicts exactly what the players say. And they might like Granato. They might. It's kind of hard not to like Granato. Like, he's a very likable guy. But actions speak a lot louder than words. And I can tell you, any other team with playoff aspirations does not let it get this far without some kind of drastic change. Now, this is not placing it all on Granato. Like I said, Adams could have made Adams could have made any move to show that he wanted to try and save the season.
Traded for Eric Robinson.
Yeah, there you go. Like, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, I understand the plan, and I'm glad Adams is sticking to the plan and didn't go full Tim Murray. But at the same time, when you showed the progress that you showed last year, I gave you the benefit of the doubt for banking on internal improvement. But when the season started out bad and you were missing that top 6 piece with Quinn and you knew he wasn't coming back until the new year, you could have done something. You chose not to. And now you're dealing with it because now Quinn's out again. You're in a position where you might be forced to trade Casey Middlestat, where I don't know if that's the right or the wrong move. So I don't know. Like I said, they've done this to themselves.
Like, realistically, like, I just have the lines up on the screen. I don't really want to talk about it like you said, but, like, you try to move Tuck down the line up to the third line to try to gain some offense with Middlestat on the third line, but in moving Kyle Okposo to the top line, like, if you're an opposing player and you see that guy sitting on the opposing top line, like, even though Jeff Skinner and Tage Thompson are, threats, you look at Kyle Okposo and say, okay, well, this is going to be pretty easy to figure out this game plan. But I don't necessarily like the whole spreading out the lines. Like, to me, just put your best players on the top line and let them shine, especially that line that we've seen in the past be so effective 5-on-5. We saw it last year. And they switch it up, and now you're trying to give Middlestat some offensive flair with putting Tuck with him, but at the same time, you're moving a guy in Kyle Okposo at this point in his career as a fourth liner, and you're having him as your top line right wing. It just, to me, it's not a recipe for success.
No, not at all. And earlier in the year, Middlestat was having success with Greenway and Benson, so it's like, not trying to be rude to Tuck here, but like, Middlestat has shown this year he doesn't really need that. He can produce with whatever situation you give him. I would have no issue putting Tuck back with Skinner and Thompson, giving it another go. It's been up and down this year, but all three of those guys have been up and down this year, but at least there's been there in the past. You now have Benson, Peterka, and Cousins who are playing well together. So why not go Middlestat, Greenway, Girgensons, Robinson, Okposo. At least Okposo on the third line I can not really get behind, but at least it's better than the first line.
No, I absolutely agree. And again, didn't want to come on here and, just completely not really give a lot of hope at this point, but it's just, they're not giving us much substance to work with here. And it just feels like, even though we're coming on here on a bi-weekly basis right now, it still feels like we just talked about the same thing yesterday. That's what it feels like when I get on here, and we're trying to give you guys objective analysis, and it's just, it's the same thing going, it's in the circle. It's the same cycle that we've been going through all season long. And hopefully once we get to March, it should be a little different if they are to make some moves to give us some interesting things to talk about here, because I just feel like, we have the same discussion on every show to open up the first half of it. And, we expect to see something different, and it doesn't happen, and the lines change, and then certain guys go in and out of the lineup. And it's just, it's hard to, I'm sure it's hard to listen to, but it's hard for us to analyze it in a way where we try to come out the other side on the better end of it.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone listening to this podcast would be upset about the fact that we're not giving them any hope, because I think they're smart enough to realize.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you're in 7th place. You're 2 points behind Montreal. I know you have the game in hand on them, but that's not where you were supposed to be. You're supposed to be where Detroit is, right? Detroit 1 point behind Tampa. You were supposed to be battling it out with Detroit for that final playoff spot. It was supposed to be Buffalo and Detroit. Detroit, again, they took a different approach. I wasn't exactly a huge fan of the way Yzerman did it, but it's working for him. If Buffalo can find a way to nuance that approach and add a few guys here and there while keeping their core intact, I think that'll be the best for them. But like you said, first half of the show, like we just talked now, it's really been the same for the past little while. The only difference now is at least the trade deadline's approaching, and hopefully they'll give us some news to talk about.
So we're going to take a break on the show today. We're going to come back. We're going to get Austin's analytic. We're going to go over our fan poll, which talks a little bit about the trade deadline. And then we'll kind of finish off with that and look ahead to the upcoming games, which, is what it is for the Sabres. But hopefully we'll have some substance for you guys to talk about a little bit here in the second half. So stay right here. We'll be right back on Sabres Semantics on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring.
J&L Flooring is Niagara's specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. With a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety of truly unique products, J&L Flooring is your specialty flooring and decor boutique shop. All of their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they simplify the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at J&L Flooring. Since 1999, Niagara Denture Clinic has been helping thousands of patients achieve natural-looking smiles with the confidence to show them off. Sean Battelle and his wife Anne, both licensed denturists, bring a wealth of skill and experience to the warm and friendly atmosphere to their Niagara Falls location at 5501 Drummond Road. And their on-site Niagara Hearing Clinic offers free hearing tests and a variety of services to fit your needs. This family-run practice takes pride in providing superior care and service to their patients, along with the best premium products available on the market. Get the best work done at a more reasonable price. Niagara Dental Clinic is here to help. Protect your teeth with a mouth guard, replace missing teeth, and get better hold with your dental implants. Call them today for a free consultation at 905-353-1552 or check them out online at niagaradentureclinic.com. Niagara Denture Clinic, creating natural smiles in the Niagara region for 25 years. Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicles in top running condition through their services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers came to expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers, who can feel confident they'll get the trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your cars. To find out more or to book a service, contact them today. 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012. In the Niagara region, Global Pet Foods is your destination for premium pet nutrition and caring expertise. Whether you've welcomed a new furry family member or need advice on top quality nutrition, their dedicated staff is ready to help. Discover why Global Pet Foods' lesser-known premium brands outshine the big corporate names. Their team's passion ensures your pet's health and vitality. Check out one of their locations today, 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where premium brands and caring staff make the difference.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Hockey night in Buffalo. Hey, hey, here we go. The boys in blue, white, and gold. Hey, hey, here we go. Make some noise, get in the zone. All for one and one for all. Let's hear you from your heart and soul. Let's go, Buffalo. And we will stand raising our hands, saying, let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. We will be here till the end, saying, let's go, Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's Sabres Semantics episode. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder back with you. Brought to you by J&L Flooring. If you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack. Contact their Niagara Falls location to begin your quality flooring project today. Quick shout out to our friends over at the Niagara Golf Lounge who are giving away free Sabres tickets for the rest of the season. All you got to do is go there, spend $40 on either playing on their golf simulators or buying some drinks, buying some food, watching some sports on. I believe they have about 400 TVs in that place. So go in there, spend $40, and you're automatically entered to win some free Sabres tickets, courtesy of the Niagara Golf Lounge in the Best Western Carencroft Hotel, a proud show sponsor here of Sabres Semantics and the Armchair GM Sports Network. So we're going to start off our second segment today, and I'm going to put Austin on the spot here with, there hasn't been a whole lot of good to talk about, but I'm going to ask him for something positive here, or it could be negative for that matter. Austin, what is your analytic this week?
Honestly, not even analytic. I just want to take just to give Luukkonen a little bit more shine. Last 10 games, .937 save percentage, 17 goals allowed, 254 saves. 3 goals. He's given up 3 goals or less in all 10 of those games. He's doing everything he can. He's not quite Sudbury, Ukko-Pekka Luukonen, but he's pretty dang close. He's as close as he's ever been in the NHL. And when you give up 17 goals in 10 games as a goalie, that's pretty impressive. So he deserves a lot of shine. He has turned into maybe everything. I don't know. I don't exactly know what their exact expectation was. When Adams took over, I think when Botterill drafted Luukkonen, the hopes was he would be the future number one. Don't exactly know what Adams' long-term outlook was for Luukkonen when he took over, but he's right now at worst, I would call him an average starting goaltender, which is all we really wanted from Buffalo. And honestly, the way he's been playing now, there's the argument that he's an above-average starting goalie, which we haven't had in a while. So he deserves a lot of credit. The team in front of him is kind of letting him down, which is really weird because that wasn't the case last year. It's basically a complete 180, and I don't see an end in sight to it unless the Sabres are somehow capable of flipping a switch and Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, and Tuck start scoring at a breakout pace again, because it's frustrating. Last year, every game we could at least be oh man, at least the Sabres scored 5 goals. Luukkonen didn't play that well, but the Sabres scored 5 goals. Now it's, what the hell, guys? Luukkonen's playing his ass off, and you guys just aren't doing anything for him.
And I look at it as, if you would have told me coming into this season that, Devin Levi would be in Rochester and the goaltending would kind of be stabilized, I wouldn't have probably believed you, because I don't think any of us saw Luukkonen taking the step that he has as the basically the starter, because they've got Eric Comrie as the backup, and sure as hell he ain't going to play unless it's a back-to-back situation. And even then, they could probably just stick Luukkonen in there or end up calling Levi up from Rochester, even though they like the fact that he's getting into games. But I think Luukkonen has been, I guess the diamond in the rough this year of what the team has been, and everybody underperforming. But, number one in the net, he has actually looked the part. And like you said, he had a dominant career with the Sudbury Wolves in the OHL, and winning a league MVP as a goaltender in a high-scoring league, that's not easy to do. So he was obviously a great junior player, and even when I talked to him, when I covered the Dallas game, he just talked about that kind of level, preparing him for the American Hockey League and grinding his way up to the NHL, and now finally having the confidence of being an NHL goaltender. And I have a quick quote here from Don Granato. I asked him about it, and it was actually a pretty good quote considering our thoughts on Don Granato this whole podcast. But this is a quote from him. Ukko has been amazing. The trajectory and the progression for him has been significant. It's no coincidence they had great mentorship with Craig Anderson over the last few years, but once we brought in Devin Levi, you could see the youthful competition as something that's pushed both of those guys to be the best version of themselves. Now Ukko is looking like somebody that is a pretty good goaltender, and Levi that has really helped push him to see as more of a veteran guy with more experience. He has been able to seize that because of the work he's put in prior, and it's nice to see from a coaching perspective. So that was directly from Don Granato on the play and the maturation process of Ukko-Pekka Luukonen this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's weird. The AHL never really seemed to click for him, which is why I was a little bit doubtful. But he's played really well in the NHL this year, and we've seen the flashes, right? And it kind of seems like we already knew he was a big athletic goalie, and you could tell maybe early on in his NHL career he was just relying on his athleticism a little bit too much, not really the technicality. Again, I'm not a goalie, so don't whatever. But you can kind of just tell, I still see it every once in a while where he's a little bit over aggressive and over pursues the puck, but you can just see now he's just so much more technically sound, like in position. Still relying on his athleticism every once in a while, but it's not, you know what I mean? Like not every save is a sliding cross crease making the save. He's finding himself in position to stand in front of the puck, direct the rebound to where it needs to go. You know, big, lanky, athletic goalies, if they ever figure it out, they usually become the best goalies. And like, I'm not ready to say he's 100% figured it out, but he's clearly figured it out relatively well. And if he keeps developing and he can kind of lock it in, he still has a chance. Like, he's a young kid, he still has a chance to become something really, really, really special. And it might work out well for Buffalo because they might have. I mean, I've seen enough to at least to commit to him for a couple of years. You don't have to necessarily promise him to be the number one goalie, but you at least have seen enough from him to sign him to a midterm contract and keep him here, right? At worst, he's your 1B. He's at least shown he's capable of that, and that's kind of really all you need from him.
And he's only 24 years old.
Exactly.
So, like, you have Levi, who's 21, and Luukkonen, I feel like he's been here forever, but he's only 24. Like, do you want to have a situation happen again where, you know, a little bit different, but you let Linus Ullmark go, and then he instantly becomes, you know, Boston's 1A goaltender? Like, I just don't want to see them get burned by either trading or letting Luukkonen go, you know, and then he goes on to become a really good starter with whatever team you trade him to, or, you know, if Devin Levi's not ready for that role. I think everybody believes that Devin Levi is going to be the long-term goaltender of the Buffalo Sabres, but that might not be for another 2 or 3 years before he's ready to take that elite level step. He's going to be able to play in the league, but can he handle the bulk of the starts, which we've seen with goaltenders, the confidence, and, you know, being, if they get shelled for a few games, like that could really hurt their development and gaining their confidence back with young goaltenders. There's not a lot of 21-year-old goaltenders that start out in this league. I mean, Carter Hart went through his trials and tribulations with the Philadelphia Flyers, barring all of the other controversial stuff. I'm just talking about strictly on the ice when he started out as a young goaltender. And Luukkonen, 24, this is technically, he's already going to surpass his most games played in a season here coming up shortly. So, and we still got, you know, a quarter of the season left here. So, I mean, he's going to play the most games he's ever played in a season, but you'd want to almost think that he's earned the opportunity next year to go and possibly start in 50 or 60 games for this team to really see, okay, what do we have in this guy? Is he going to be a starter or is he going to be a backup? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. And like, the good news for Buffalo is he's a RFA, right? So he's a restricted free agent. Unless you trade him, he's not really going anywhere. So the silver lining in this season might be Luukkonen's play, where Buffalo's seen enough to be like, hey, we can give you a 3-year deal and make you our de facto starter next year. If they work something out, either Levi can be your 1B, but you don't have to put a lot of pressure on him because you know Luukkonen can do it. Or best case scenario, you can let Levi play 60 games in Rochester next year, and you find a way to get a veteran backup on a 1-year deal, a la Eric Comrie, maybe a little bit more stable than that, and run with that and Luukkonen. I don't know. That's the best. The best thing so far this season has been Luukkonen, and the fact that next year you almost don't have to bank on Levi making this team. If he makes the team, that's fantastic. You can run with Luukkonen and Levi and be confident. Because unfortunately right now for Eric Comrie, no disrespect to him at all, this team has no faith in him. Like you just said, they won't start him unless it's a back-to-back, and I wouldn't even be surprised half the time if it's a back-to-back if they just call Levi up.
Not wrong. And again,
Right?
like they're relying on a 21 and 24-year-old goaltender going into the year, and I don't think that we gave them enough criticism for that because we like Luukkonen, we like Levi, but was that the smart play going into this season with how fragile this team has been, you know, on the offensive side and, you know, as far as their team defense, to put all that pressure on a 21-year-old and a 24-year-old? And we saw, you know, Levi's been up and down, and now it seems like they finally got a plan for him starting in Rochester, which probably should have been the plan from the beginning, but you saw last year and you wanted to grasp onto that and say, okay, we've got lightning here, let's use it. But like, it almost, looking back on it now in retrospect, like, was this, you know, a failed plan from the beginning in wanting to rely on a 21-year-old Devin Levi and a 24-year-old Ukko-Pekka Luukonen as the backup, when they should have had, you know, like you said, a contingency plan in place here to have Levi start in Rochester, have a veteran goalie better than Eric Comrie to be able to, you know, help supplement the starts at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it probably would have been the way to go. I realized the market wasn't exactly the greatest. I mean, look at Ottawa, what they threw at Corpusalo. I think nobody would have been happy if Buffalo did anything remotely close to that. The options weren't exactly the greatest, but there probably was a move out there that could have been made. I don't know exactly what it could have been, but if they tried hard enough, they probably could have found one. But that being said, they put themselves in this position. They've kind of lucked into Luukkonen. He was not very stable at the beginning of the year, but he definitely stabilized now. It kind of sucks. Maybe that's because he didn't know where he stood organizationally. Now that he kind of knows, hey, I'm the guy. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I'm not a goalie. I know they're very weird characters, but yeah, I don't know. It's just he's literally Middlestat's also been a bright spot. Like I don't want to just gloss
Right.
over that, but like figuring out that Luukkonen can be an intermediate like piece for this team. Like maybe not a long term 7-year guy, but you can definitely rely on him for the next 3-4 years. That's big because I don't know if we knew that coming into the season. So really, this season has been Luukkonen's breakout year, I guess, and that's probably the main headline. We'll see. Like I said, we'll see what they do with Casey Middlestat if he's still here, because if he gets moved or extended, that will probably take over as one of the top headlines of the year. But right now, I think Luukkonen deserves that. This is the best story so far for the Sabres.
Absolutely. So something positive to talk about, refreshing for sure, and very well done for Ukko-Pekka Luukonen. Hope that he keeps this up into this next stretch of games. But let's go to our last topic today, and it is our Sabres poll, our fan poll that I put up a couple hours ago before we started recording the show. Make sure to follow us at Sabres Semantics for all of our Sabres coverage and all of our Sabres polls. If you want to have your voice heard whenever we record a Sabres episode, we try to put up a poll. And had a pretty tough time coming up with one today, but we did get one up there. So pretty decent discussion here to have, at least to wrap up the show. Which UFA should Buffalo push the hardest to move before the NHL trade deadline? Defenseman Eric Johnson, forward Kyle Oposo, or forward Zemgus Girgensons? I should have put all of the above as one of the options on this poll because I got some responses that said all of them. But, I mean, okay, all of them, but which one would you move out first, I guess you could say. Eric Johnson takes this poll with 50%. Kyle Oposo second at 28.6%, and Zemgus Girgensons at 21.4%. Austin, what were you thinking when you came up with this poll?
I guess we could have thrown Victor Olofsson on that poll too, but in my mind, he is gone. I think that's a foregone conclusion. The other three, I think, were on the poll in my mind because I don't know if it's 100% that all three of them are gone for their own reasons. I feel like Girgensons out of the three is probably the most valuable, but also the league values defensemen. Like the market for defensemen is all over the place. So Johnson could be that guy too, I guess. Yeah, I think Johnson or Girgensons would have been the top two. Oposo is, if he doesn't want to go, you don't trade him. That's just that he's kind of earned that right, I guess, right? So I guess that's really a conversation that needs to be had with him. But if he doesn't want to leave, yeah, you have to keep him. He's earned that right. I think in a perfect world, both Johnson and Girgensons are gone. I don't know exactly what the value is. I don't know what Adams would be looking for. But I don't think you're going to get anything spectacular for either one of them. But I guess at least it opens up spots. I don't know. It's you don't. I think it was. I don't know if it was Friedman and 32 Thoughts in his blog or somebody said something. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of teams that would like to sell, but not everyone's going to exactly like what they're selling. And he mentioned the San Jose Sharks. Like the San Jose Sharks would love to sell a lot of people, but does anybody really want that stuff? And I think Buffalo kind of falls into that as well. Like, depending UFAs that they do have, does anyone really want those guys? Maybe Eric Johnson because he's won a cup before and he's a right shot D. Maybe Girgensons because he's that bottom six guy that maybe people want in the playoffs. But realistically, are they going to want him enough to pay you anything of value? I don't know. It's something I guess we'll hear more about. But to me, the other pieces, a la Casey Middlestat, are far more valuable and far more intriguing to other teams. And I don't know if, again, I don't think that's a trade deadline trade. It could be, I guess, if the offers come in. But to me, that's more of a summer thing, if anything. So I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see given Friedman's report that they want to get pieces to help them right now, given the fact that they're not very good, given the fact that they do have a right shot pending UFA who might be valuable, and a bottom six guy like Jurgensen's who can play center or wing and has been here his whole career, maybe he wants to get traded and go on a playoff run because like the dude's 30 years old. It's like he's been here forever. It's probably just time to move on. I don't know. I don't think they're that valuable, but I guess the NHL trade deadline is weird sometimes, so we'll see.
Yeah, sometimes we see guys go for stuff and you kind of shake your head saying, okay, he was worth that. But, it is what it is. It just depends on how desperate the teams are that are trying to acquire, bottom end or complementary pieces to add to their lineup in something that they really need. And if a team thinks that they need a Zemgus Girgensons, maybe they end up forking up, a decently mid-round draft pick or something like that for him. But to me, I think the easiest one's Johnson, just because he's only been here for half a year, and I think, like you mentioned, he's got the pedigree around the league as a Stanley Cup champion with Colorado that people would want to have him in their locker room for those late pushes to the playoffs and the deep playoff runs. He's got good experience. To me, I think it'd be harder to move a guy like Okposo because then you have to decide what do you want to do with the C because he's wearing that right now. Do you automatically throw it on a guy like Tuck, or do you just go the rest of the season without a captain and just have rotating alternates? So I think that's a harder discussion to have just because of the fact that guy is wearing your C right now. If you do trade him, then you've got to decide what to do there, and if it's a long-term leadership group or you want to just put a temporary one in place, and that's a whole other discussion. So that's kind of gets a little bit more difficult in the waters there, but. And then Girgensons, just for the fact that he's been here through this entire suffering, as Darcy Regier said. He drafted in 2012. He's the longest tenured Sabre. Somehow he has survived this entire thing, basically three new regimes. He keeps getting re-signed to 2 or 3 year, 1 year extensions and continues to somehow be a Buffalo Sabre. It's incredible the fact that he's lasted on this team since his draft year in 2012 when they drafted him in the first round with the pick that they got for Paul Gostad, which is wild to me that there's still some bits and pieces of that core left from that whole era of Sabres hockey, and it's Zemgus Girgensons. It blows my mind that he's still here, and it would actually kind of be sad to see him go before we finally got to the playoffs because I feel like he deserves to be here for when things actually start to go well and the team actually made the playoffs. Like he's put everything into this, his heart and soul into this organization that really hasn't given back to him other than continuing to re-sign him as a National Hockey League player. So, he's getting paid, so I'm not going to feel too much sympathy for him, but it would almost be sad to see him go because I would love to see them actually make the playoffs with Zemgus still on the roster.
Yeah, like you said, he's the longest tenured guy. But to me, that's more reason to trade him than be like, hey man, sorry, but we'll send you somewhere where at least you have a shot. And, I know Pegula loves him. I know he loves Buffalo. I would be totally against it because I think you just need a change. He's been here for so long. And I really do like Jurgensen's. Nothing against the player at all. You could always bring him back as a UFA in the summer, but
oh man,
I think it's just time to move on. Again, replace these older pending UFAs with more, a little bit younger veterans and, make a few tweaks on the back end and maybe add some more score. I don't know. There's a lot to be done for this team. And to me, that's why I think you have to trade Girgensons because Pegula loves him so much. Jeff Merrick said it on 32 Thoughts, the podcast with Friedman, that, ownership loves Zemgus Girgensons. Pegula loves him, and I get it. But it's been 12 years. Move on. Get what you can for him. Open up a spot. Maybe you can see someone from Rochester step up, or maybe you acquire somebody else. I don't know. But changes need to be made, and tough conversations need to be had. Like I said, Okposo is different. He's your captain. He's really enjoyed it here. He's given it his everything. He is not a player you trade unless he comes to you and says, like, I would like to, go on a cup run, which maybe he wants to. Again, you're probably not going to get much for him, which is fine. Again, that's just if he wants to get moved out of the courtesy of your heart, you find a way to move him. Or if he wants to stay out of the courtesy of your heart, you let him stay. Johnson, I kind of agree with you. He's only been here half a year. I don't think this is a long-term relationship. Unless the agent, for whatever reason, says he does not want to be moved. I can't see why he wouldn't want to be moved, though. I don't know.
Yeah, and he just got here, and he's a guy that you've even said, like, should he even be in the lineup at this point? So if they were even to get something for him, I mean, I know Samuelson's out for the year, but you've got Bryson you can slide in there. You move Ryan Johnson up the lineup like you've been clamoring for half a season now. They can live with not having Eric Johnson in this decor, and I think you'd basically be at the same point you're at now. I don't think that if you trade away Eric Johnson, you're instantly going to lose 20% more games. I don't think that's a move that really matters.
No, not at all. It's not making you drastically worse.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's easy PR. If the veterans want to get moved, you send them somewhere, and it opens up spots. Like I said, I have no idea what their plan is for this trade deadline. We do know historically the trade deadline is not really the time to make hockey trades, but if they do find a way to make one, that's great. If not, at least try and open up a few spots for somebody in Rochester, somebody new. I don't know.
Now, quickly before we kind of wrap up, if they were to take the C off of Kyle Opoza, if he were to move, would that be a scenario where if you were the coach, just keep the A's what they are, don't name a captain the rest of the year, or would you go ahead and put it on a Rasmus Dahlin or put it on an Alex Tuck without really having a long-term plan in the summer to kind of figure all that out? What do you think would be the best-case scenario for that room right now if they were to move up Opoza as the captain?
You put it on Dahlin or Cousins, one of those two guys, maybe even Tuck, but you put it on one of those two guys. I think it's just they know who the leader is. The letter doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's a nice way to at least reward one of those players and just give them a little bit of extra juice. But if you were to ask me today, I don't think Oposo gets moved.
Okay.
Right? I feel like he had the chance. Maybe his mind is different because the team isn't making the playoffs this year, but I feel like he said it's Buffalo or nowhere. Right. And if he still truly does feel that way, he's not going anywhere. So I think he's a moot point, but I think the other two and Olofsson, whatever you can get for him, maybe those three at least you got to move. And then maybe Adams pulls a rabbit out of the hat and makes a nice little hockey trade. We'll see. I doubt it, but we'll see.
Or makes an Eric Robinson type trade.
Yeah, well.
But, so I'm sure we'll have that to discuss here as we move forward in the next couple of shows as we go forward here. But as far as the next couple of weeks, Austin, just quickly before we wrap up, this next 7 games here, possible 14 points, LA, Florida, Anaheim, and Carolina at home. They're on the road in Minnesota, Montreal, Columbus. To me, Columbus and Montreal should be slam dunk wins, but they probably won't be. So out of a possible 14 points out of those next 7 games here before we record again, what are you, I guess, hoping, but, being realistic, what are you thinking that they probably will get?
They should be able to beat LA. They should be able to beat Minnesota. And they should be able to handle Anaheim, Montreal, Columbus. That's 10 points right there that they should be able to get. But, like you said, if I'm being realistic, they'll probably lose to LA, probably lose to Florida, and then they'll beat 3 of the next 5. So what's that, 6 points?
So 6 of 14 is what you're saying is probable.
Probable? Yeah. What they should be able to get 10 out of 14, but I just put it like this, Luukkonen might be able to steal him a couple games because he's playing that good.
Now, here's a question: who starts?
And Luukkonen should start all 7 games.
I was gonna say if Luukkonen doesn't start all 7 games, does Levi start more than Eric Comrie does in the next 7 games?
Yes, but I think Luukkonen is going to start all 7 games.
Are there any back-to-backs there?
Nope, there's no back-to-back for the rest of the month.
No back-to-back. Wow, there you go. So
they have that's the problem, right? So it's if it's not Luukkonen, it's probably going to have to be Comrie because there's no practice time. There's really I know Rochester's close, don't get me wrong, but it's every other day that they're playing. It's very hard to get Levi up here and play and then back down to Rochester to keep playing because Levi needs to keep playing. So I would imagine you either see Luukkonen go on a huge tear and that's it, or maybe I don't know. I can't imagine Comrie playing, but you never know.
Well, you never know, and you never know with this team. As we said, goals are at a premium, as we say in this thumbnail today. But that's going to wrap up another cautiously, I don't even know what you want to call it, pessimistic episode.
Yeah, that's a good. That is a very good, cautiously pessimistic.
episode of Sabre Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by J&L Flooring. Guys, make sure to follow the podcast on X at Sabre Semantics for all of our Sabres content as well. Thank you to those today watching us in on-demand, or listening to us in on-demand audio, and also watching our sad faces here on the YouTube version of the podcast. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, or smash that bell if you agree with us today about what we discussed with this Sabres team and if things are going to change. We'll talk to you again in a few weeks after the next set of games here, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. For Austin Bride, my name is Brandon Caputo. We'll talk to you again very soon. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.